In a small town where secrets are as common as the morning sun, two people crossed paths in a way that seemed almost destined. Shanann, a woman who had always fought against the odds, found herself facing a battle that felt impossible. Her health, her future, and her sense of self. But it was during this fight that she found Chris Watts, not with grand gestures but with quiet, steady care. It wasn't love at first sight. For Shanann, the idea of love felt distant, too fragile to hold. She was used to people leaving when things got hard. But Chris didn't leave, he stayed. You're watching Secret Crime HQ, your ultimate destination for gripping true crime content. We uncover hidden truths, explore cold cases. Their first conversation wasn't filled with promises or passion. It was simply about a moment, a quiet connection, something more solid than fleeting attraction. You made me feel like I could breathe again, Shanann would later write, recalling their first encounters. They met online in a time when she was feeling broken, unsure if love could be real for her anymore. Chris, a man of few words, seemed like a simple guy, someone who didn't need to say much but somehow understood what she needed without a word. Their first date wasn't perfect, not a Hollywood romance. It wasn't even something she was sure would happen. But once it did, and once they spent those few hours together, there was an unspoken truth. This was different. This wasn't some fantasy. This was a real connection. And for Shanann, that was everything she had been searching for. And then, as life has a way of doing, things moved forward quickly. After their wedding, Chris and Shanann took the next step, leaving behind the familiarity of their old lives and settling into the quiet streets of Frederick, Colorado. It was a new beginning, and for Shanann, it felt like the fresh start she'd always dreamed of. The town was calm, small, almost perfect for a young couple trying to build something real. They found a house nestled on a cul-de-sac surrounded by homes filled with the promises of new memories, a place where in the quiet of the night they could plan their future without distraction. Shanann shared photos of their new home with friends, Chris beaming as he painted walls, his hands full with their new life together. It was all so simple, and yet it felt like the beginning of everything. They were ready to start a family, to make the dreams they had shared into something tangible. But like all journeys, theirs had its challenges. The pressure of settling into a new place, both physically and emotionally, wasn't easy. But through it all, Chris was there, a steady force beside Shanann. They talked about everything, dreams, fears, the future, and how they wanted to raise their children. In 2013, Bella, their first daughter, was born. It was a moment that brought joy, yes, but also a weight of responsibility. Shanann could feel her world shift with the arrival of this little girl. The hospital room was filled with overwhelming love, but also that quiet realization. Life would never be the same again, and it was everything they had hoped for. Bella's first cry, her small fingers wrapping around Shannon's hand. It was the confirmation that they had built something beautiful, something worth fighting for. 2 years later, Celeste or Cease was born. This time the air felt different, more confident, more settled, a family of 4. This was what they had worked toward, and as Chris cradled his daughters, his joy was undeniable. In their little world, they were perfect. The photos said it all. A small, happy family living a quiet life in a suburban home. There were no grand declarations, just the quiet, steady beat of family life. And for Shanann, this was enough. The world saw them as a picture of happiness. A small family nestled in a town that felt like a dream. But like all dreams, it was fragile. Beneath the smiles, there was a subtle undercurrent, a tension that only the two of them could feel. But for now, they were content. Or at least that was how it seemed. As their family grew, so did their dreams. For Shanann, the idea of staying home while raising her daughters wasn't enough. She had always been a woman with big ambitions, a vision that extended beyond the walls of her home. In 2014, she found her path, Thrive, a wellness business that would not only provide a sense of purpose, but also the financial independence she longed for. She was determined to make it work, to prove to herself and to others that she could build something meaningful. There was something magnetic about Shannon's drive, her energy contagious. She poured herself into her work, her eyes always on the prize. Chris, however, wasn't the type to take center stage. His role was more subtle but no less important. He was her quiet support, the one who took care of the girls when she was out at events, the one who offered encouragement when the road felt too tough. His presence was steady, like the ground beneath her feet, allowing her to chase her dreams with unwavering confidence. Through it all, their love for each other grew in small moments. On weekends, they took family trips camping, hiking, sometimes just a drive down the winding roads of Colorado. Shanann would share photos on social media, the perfect family and the perfect life. It was how they showed the world what they had built: love, joy, and the promise of a bright future. Her posts were filled with hashtags like 2 in family goals and 2 dreams. Docat true. Chris would sit beside her taking the photos, and when they posted together, their smiles spoke louder than words. They were a team. Even when the camera wasn't rolling, every picture was a promise, every trip a shared adventure, and in the eyes of their followers, they had the perfect life. But behind the photos and the filters, there were plans being made for the future. They spoke often about raising their girls in a home full of love, about building the kind of life that would allow them to expand their family someday. Financial stability was at the forefront of their discussions. How to save, how to invest, how to ensure the girls would never want for anything. It was in these quiet conversations that their future was shaped. Shanann would dream aloud of having more children, a larger home, vacations that felt even more perfect than the last. Chris, ever the steady partner, was there listening, nodding, providing the quiet reassurance that they could do this, that they would do this. Their dreams were big, and the world seemed open before them. But like everything in life, those dreams had their shadows, their moments of doubt, whispers of things unseen. For now, though, those were only whispers. For in this moment they were a family, a team, and the world saw them as they wanted to be seen, strong, happy, and full of promise. As time passed, the Watts family found themselves on the cusp of another new beginning. The quiet comfort of their life in Frederick, Colorado, had become familiar. But Shanann wasn't content to leave things as they were. She dreamed of expanding their family, of filling their home with more laughter, more love. And so, in 2017, they learned they were expecting again. Shanann's excitement was palpable. She posted on social media, her glowing face showing the unmistakable joy of a mother-to-be. "Our little miracle is on the way," she wrote, her words full of hope and anticipation. She imagined their home brimming with the kind of chaos only children could bring. A house full of laughter, sibling rivalry, and above all, love. Shanann believed that a new baby, a son, would be the perfect addition to their family. She thought it would be the answer to so many of her dreams. For Chris, though, things felt different. On the surface, he was the supportive husband, the man who celebrated the news of their 3rd child with Shanann. But there was something behind his eyes. He was quieter now, more withdrawn, and the spark that had once been so easy to seem dimmer with each passing day. Shanann noticed the shift. She wanted this baby with everything she had, but she also wanted Chris. She believed that the arrival of baby Nico would bring them closer together, give them another chance to build something even stronger. She could feel it. This baby was going to make everything better. She focused all of her energy on preparing for his arrival. The nursery, the baby clothes, the plans for a life that seemed so perfect in her mind. But in the stillness of their home, behind the smiles and shared moments, Chris was struggling. His withdrawal wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was subtle, like a quiet undercurrent pulling him further away. He was still present, still there physically, but there was a distance growing between them that Shanann couldn't explain. He didn't talk about his feelings, and Shanann, in her hopeful anticipation, didn't push him to. She believed that once Nico was born, everything would fall into place. For Shanann, the future was a promise, a dream waiting to unfold. She worked tirelessly to create the kind of environment she wanted for her 3 children, a home full of love, security, and warmth. But as the months passed and the pregnancy advanced, the tension between her optimism and Chris's withdrawal seemed to grow. The world saw a happy, glowing family, but the truth was that Shanann could feel the cracks beneath the surface, even if she wasn't ready to acknowledge them. For now, though, she was determined to create a life that was safe and joyful for the children she was about to bring into the world. She hoped, she believed, that love would fill the gaps. As the years passed, the Watts family faced a reality that all families know too well: the weight of everyday life. The dream of a perfect home, the promise of happiness, started to feel heavy, like the weight of all those hopes and dreams pressing in from every side. Shanann was no stranger to hard work. She had built her Thrive business from the ground up, but the strain of juggling her career with motherhood began to take its toll. She poured herself into her business, determined to make it a success, believing that financial stability was the key to their happiness. But as the months went by, the pressure kept mounting. Bills piled up, and despite all her hard work, the stress never seemed to let up. She felt herself teetering on the edge. Was it enough? Was she enough? Chris, for his part, did his best to support her, though his role was quieter, more withdrawn. He worked long hours trying to keep things together, but the demands of work and family left him little room to connect with Shanann. There were moments when his silence spoke louder than any words could, where once he would have comforted her with a smile or a hug. Now he would retreat into himself. Shanann, exhausted from balancing her work, the kids, and the constant weight of her health struggles, found herself yearning for something, anything, to give her reassurance. She needed to know she wasn't alone in this. She needed Chris to remind her that they were a team, that the weight they carried was meant to be shared. But increasingly, she found herself searching for answers in places where there were none. His silence was no longer the quiet reassurance it once had been. It was a barrier. Small signs began to surface, things she couldn't quite put into words but felt deeply in her bones. The long silences at dinner, the late nights when Chris would retreat into his phone, his reluctance to engage in conversations about the future, about them. Shanann would trying to pull him back into their life, but each attempt felt like a gentle push against an unyielding wall. Their marriage, once so full of promise and excitement, now seemed to be hanging by a thread, but neither was willing to admit it. The emotional distance crept in like a shadow in the corner of their life, a slow burn of disconnection that neither of them knew how to extinguish. Despite it all, Shanann refused to give up on the dream they had built. She would keep fighting, keep pushing forward. She told herself that it was just a rough patch, a season of life they would get through because that's what families did. They worked through the hard times, but as the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, the cracks in their relationship began to show. Shannon's love for Chris was undeniable. Even in the face of growing silence, emotional distance, and the pressures of daily life, her loyalty to him never wavered. She believed with all her heart that love was something worth fighting for. She had fought so hard for this family, for this life, and she wasn't about to give up on it. Her social media posts often painted a picture of love and admiration for Chris. Her words a testament to the bond she had believed in. "My rock, my best friend," she would write, always tagging him in photos that showed their smiles, their happiness. There were pictures from family outings, candid moments with their girls, and hashtags like "that's my forever" and "now it's my better half." To the world, it was clear their marriage was built on a foundation of unwavering love. But behind those posts, there were moments of doubt that Shanann couldn't ignore. She felt the distance growing between them, but she wasn't ready to acknowledge it out loud. Instead, she leaned into the relationships that had always been her pillars of strength, her friends and family. They saw the changes, too. Shanann often confided in her closest friends, speaking in hushed tones about the silent rift she sensed. "He's not the man I married," she would admit. But even in those conversations, she refused to give up hope. She still believed in Chris, in their life together, and in the love they shared. She knew something wasn't right. But she also knew the man she loved, the man who had once been so steady, so present, could come back. Her friends listened, reassured her, but deep down they knew that Shanann was facing a battle she didn't fully understand yet. They reminded her of her strength, of the woman who had fought through illness, built a business, and raised 2 beautiful daughters. They encouraged her to focus on what she could control, her family, her future. But Shanann was determined to fight for her marriage. She believed in the vows she had made and the promises they had exchanged. She knew that love wasn't always easy, but it was worth every effort. She believed that she could make things work, that with time, things would return to how they once were. Her love for her children was equally strong. As their family grew, Shannon's focus never wavered from protecting their future, from ensuring they had everything they needed emotionally, financially, and physically. No matter the strain between her and Chris, her role as their mother was clear. She would do whatever it took to create a safe, loving environment for them. Shannon's devotion was a quiet kind of strength, one that kept her going, even when the distance between her and Chris felt insurmountable. She held on to hope, kept loving him in the way only she knew how, even when the signs of something deeper, something darker, seemed to grow stronger. She kept her family together, even as her own heart broke a little more each day. As the months wore on, the cracks in Chris and Shannon's marriage deepened. What had once been a partnership grounded in love and shared dreams now seemed to fracture under the weight of silence and unspoken distance. Shanann tried. She always tried. But no matter how much effort she poured into keeping things together, it was as if Chris was slipping further away from her. There were nights when she would lie awake beside him, staring at the ceiling, wondering what had happened to the man she married. He wasn't the same. He wasn't even there anymore. Where once their conversations flowed easily, now they were short, disconnected. Where there had been affection, now there was only a cold, uneasy space. Chris, for reasons Shanann couldn't quite grasp, had begun to withdraw into himself, retreating into the shadows of his own mind. He was still there, physically present but emotionally absent. Shanann, desperate to save the love she still believed was there, clung to the hope that things could turn around. She tried to fill the silence with warmth, with little gestures of affection, but the harder she pushed, the more he pulled away. The woman who had once been confident in her love, in their connection, now found herself second-guessing everything. She asked herself, "Is this my fault? Have I missed something?" In moments of vulnerability, she turned to her friends. She confided in them about her fears, her growing sense of unease. "Something's off," she'd say. "He's not the same, but I don't want to give up. I still love him, and I know he still loves me. I just have to figure out how to fix this." Her friends reassured her. They encouraged her to keep fighting, to keep hopping. They reminded her that love, true love, wasn't always easy, that it took work, but in the end it was worth it. Shanann didn't want to hear the words, "Maybe it's time to let go." She didn't want to accept that the love story they had once lived might be nearing its end. But even as she fought to hold things together, Shanann could feel the shift. Their love story, once full of light, was now approaching a crossroads. There was no more denying it. They were no longer the same people they had been when they first met, when they had built their dreams together. The distance between them had become too vast to ignore. Shanann still held on to the belief that love could conquer all, that they could fix this, that they could return to what they had. But deep down, she knew that love alone wouldn't be enough to heal the wounds that had silently been growing between them. Their story, a story that once seemed like the perfect love, had reached its breaking point, and Shanann couldn't help but wonder if it was too late to turn back. In the years that followed, Shannon's story became one of love, resilience, and loss. The woman who had given everything to her family, who had fought tirelessly to build a life full of love and joy, would forever be remembered for her unwavering devotion. Shanann was more than a wife. She was a mother who poured her heart into everything she did for Bella, Cease, and Nico. From the moment they were born, they were her world. Shannon's love for her children knew no bounds. Every day she gave all of herself to them. She made sure they knew they were loved, cherished, and safe. In every smile, every hug, every shared moment of joy, her love was there, wrapped around them like a blanket. Her devotion as a wife mirrored that of a mother, constant, protective, and full of hope. Even in the hardest times, even as cracks began to show in her marriage, Shannon's love for Chris never wavered. She believed that love could heal, that their family could weather any storm. She fought for them, for their future. Her passion for family was evident in everything she did. Shannon's dreams, too, were part of this story. She built a business, a life beyond motherhood, and she worked tirelessly to ensure her family's security. She shared her journey openly, her struggles and triumphs with friends, family, and followers who admired her resilience. But now, in the absence of her, it's the memories that remain of Bella's giggles, Cease's sweet laughter, and the baby Nico she had so eagerly anticipated. These memories are the legacy of a love that will never be forgotten. Though her life was tragically cut short, Shannon's spirit lives on in the hearts of her children. They carry with them the love she gave them, the lessons she taught, and the joy she brought into the world. Her story is one of a woman who loved fiercely, who lived fully, and who believed in the beauty of family, no matter the odds. It's a love story that in its ending became a tragedy. But even in tragedy, Shannon's heart continues to beat in the memories of those she left behind. Shannon's legacy is written in the love of her children, in the friendships she formed, and in the passion she brought to every aspect of her life. And though her life was stolen far too soon, her heart will be remembered forever. A reminder of the strength of a mother's love, the power of devotion, and the undying hope that love in the end always endures. In the end, what stands out most about Shanann and her family is not the tragedy that claimed them, but the love they shared, a love that transcended all else. Shannon's devotion to her children, Bella and Celeste, and to the little life she was carrying, baby Nico, was the heartbeat of her world. She believed in family above all, in creating a home filled with laughter, warmth, and the kind of love that could weather any storm. Even in the darkest of times, Shannon's love never faltered. She held on to the belief that love could carry them through, that a family's bond could endure all challenges. Though their story was tragically cut short, the memory of their love, a mother's unwavering devotion, two daughters' bright innocence, and the hopeful dreams for the future will forever live on. Their names will remain etched in the hearts of those who knew them. Their love will continue to resonate, a timeless reminder that no matter how brief a life, love leaves a mark that time can never erase. And in the hearts of those who carry their memory, Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and Nico will always be remembered,